Welcome back to Movie Recap Zone. Today, I'm going to explain a romantic war drama film from 2016 titled The Exception. Spoilers ahead, watch out and enjoy. The movie begins with a girl in a white dress lying almost dead on the grasses. Before the angle draws nearer to the pale face, a man suddenly wakes up from the bed to get away from the nightmare he just experienced. Captain Stephen Brandt says goodbye to the woman he just spent the night with. Just then he receives a phone call, and the moment he grabs the telephone to answer, it is a call from General Falkenberg, his commanding officer. Falkenberg orders Brandt to be the head guard of Kaiser Wilhelm II, the former emperor of Germany who currently stays at the mansion in Holland. In Holland, the big mansion waits for the coming of Captain Brandt. The thugs of the Maid's footsteps can be heard on the floor of the huge place. Everyone is preparing. Brandt makes his way to Wilhelm's estate where he meets Colonel Sigurd van Ilsman. The colonel acknowledges his duty and instructed him that they must not go beyond the boards of interfering with women's staffs, not even the maids. In his uptight position, Brandt agrees without a doubt and he looks forward to working with the colonel. In the mansion, Captain Brandt's duties are reiterated. Inspector Dietrich informs Brandt that the British Secret Service has an agent with a coded radio that can transmit information, which they perceived as a threat to Kaiser's life. They may be plotting an assassination or kidnapping attempt on Wilhelm. He orders Brandt to identify the second agent known to be inside the household and informs him that if anything happens to Wilhelm, he would be held responsible. On the other side, the Kaiser, or Wilhelm II, is an elderly man who has no power left now. His wife Hermina informs him that the military have been sent to protect him and indicates that the army still wants him back in the throne, and he needs to make a good impression. She also encourages his beloved husband to invite the commander-chiefs to dinner. Later, former General Kaiser and Colonel Sigurd are talking about invasion when one of the maids, Mika, enters the room to deliver hot coffee. Both men delightfully welcome the presence of Mika and laugh with amazement. Kaiser asks for her thoughts on the invasion of Holland, and she tells him that it's a good idea. Wilhelm jokingly asks her why she thinks Holland was invaded. She tells him, because it's a beautiful country. The response throws Wilhelm into a fit of laughter. Smilingly, Mika exits the room, giving the two men their private conversation time. In the evening, Mika knocks on Brandt's personal room to inform him that Wilhelm is inviting him to dinner. After she let out the message, a moment of silence creeps between the two. Brandt breaks the silence by asking the maid to undress herself. Without hesitation, Mika does so. Brandt stares at the beautiful woman in front of him. They both are silently whimpering by the pleasure they are sharing. After having his fun with her, Brandt tells her to inform Wilhelm that he would be honored to accept the invitation. Wilhelm and the rest of the household welcome Brandt to join them in their dinner, and receives instructions from Sigurd on how he should protect the Kaiser. Brandt cannot focus on what the former general talks about. Instead, his attention shifts to the beautiful maid whom he possesses last night. The dinner finishes, and Brandt returns to his room and is startled by Mika, who's already waiting for him inside. He asks how did she get in, but instead of answering his question, Mika asks him to take his clothes off. Warmth once again starts to rise inside the room when Brandt willingly takes his clothes out, showing his well-defined body. Brandt pushes him onto his bed and have pleasure as they share another night together. After they finish, she begins to leave the room, but Brandt asks her to stay the rest of the night with him. But Mika says nothing and leaves. The next morning, Sigurd informs Wilhelm that he has received news of an assassination plan on him, and suggests that Brandt moves into the mansion. But Kaiser is unbothered by the news and his attention is focused on the more important things to do. He goes to feed the ducks in his pond. Seconds after his assistant goes away, Mika arrives toward him. The maid carries a small pouch of bread and hands it over to Kaiser. Using the crumbled bread, the former general gives the bread to Mika and asks her to feed the ducks. Soon, Brandt joins them and Wilhelm jokes about the news of the British spy that is after him. He invites Brandt for dinner once again and asks Mika to take him to his room in the mansion. Inside the room, Mika reminds him that relations between the staff and soldiers are strictly forbidden. If they get caught, they may lose their position. Instead of minding the forbidden rule, Brandt asks about the location of Mika's room, to which he tells and gets out. Days after, Mika proceeds her way to the church. There she meets his ally, Pastor Hendricks. Mika explains to the pastor that she is worried about being discovered. The pastor reassures him that they will help her get out once she's done doing her duty. We then learn that Mika is actually a British spy who is currently staying at the Kaiser's mansion to crack some information. Sometime later, Mika nervously walks her way back to the mansion. Once she enters her room, she finds Brandt waiting inside. Brandt apologizes for how he treats her during their first meeting and tells her how he wants her to be his. Later that night, while Wilhelm discusses about the war with Brandt and Sigurd, Mika serves them some drinks. Meanwhile, one of the army guards finds that the British special agent is located somewhere in the village, and they plan to raid the location once they confirm the exact place. Back in Mika's room, Mika tells him that she wanted him as well, and they begin to have fun once again. After their satisfying session, Mika stares at Brandt and reveals to Brandt that she is Jewish, but the man does not care about the information. They fall asleep, but Brandt wakes up again from his same bad dream again. He leaves the room telling Mika to keep her personal information between them, and not to tell anyone that she's a Jew. A few moments later, Brandt sees the inspector who tracks the special agent. The inspector informs him about the raid that they plan to conduct in the village, and about the visit of Himmler, the head of SS. As they part ways, Brandt goes to inform Wilhelm, but his wife also enters the room to tell her husband about the visit of Himmler. As they share the same information, Brandt leaves the room to inform Sigurd. Brandt asks him if they keep firing arms in the mansion and who cleans it. The assistant calmly answers that they possess such weapons because Kaiser uses them and the soldiers clean these things. Brandt clarifies if the maids also clean a firing weapon, and leaves telling him that the soldiers would have to search all the maids' rooms. Outside, Hermann approaches Brandt and walks beside him. She tells him the importance of Himmler's visit, which may restore Wilhelm as the King of Germany. Brandt politely acknowledges Hermann's expectation before he courteously asks to leave. Hours before Himmler's arrival, the Gestapo arrives to start their search at the mansion. They thoroughly ransack each room against Wilhelm's approval. Wilhelm, unable to stand the soldiers, goes to sit by the pond while Mika brings him some breads for the ducks. The old man talks to him and tries to start a fun conversation, but Mika can only give a fake smile out of her nervousness. On the other side, Brandt personally goes inside Mika's room and finds the weapon under her side table. After the search, Mika exasperatedly goes inside her room and breathes out when she sees her weapon in the same place where she keeps it. After the inspection is done, Brandt is outside exchanging a conversation with the inspector when he sees Mika exits again while she carries a large brown bag. Mika leaves the mansion for the village and informs the village pastor of Himmler's plan to visit the mansion, and with her courage, she plans to kill Himmler today. The pastor tries to stop the enraged maid, but Mika wants to get even with Himmler, who killed her father and husband. But all their conversation is heard by Brandt, who followed Mika to the village. In the evening, Hendrix continuously presses the tracking button to contact London, but the German soldiers pinpoint the pastor's radio transmissions and arrest him. Later that night, Meek suddenly walks into Brandt's room. Once they get closer, both of them share another peaceful night together. Brandt wakes up from his same nightmare and explains the story to Mika about a little girl he tried to save but couldn't. But before Mika exits his room, Brandt asks her to marry him. Surprise envelops the maid's expression, but she declines by stating again her religion. Before their conversation gets longer, someone suddenly bangs on Brandt's door, leaving the two in shock. Afterward, Hermina tells Wilhelm of Brandt and Mika's affair. She demands that he dismisses Mika and have Brandt court-martial. But the Kaiser responds that even though he no longer rules Germany, he will rule his own house. Therefore, Kaiser still allows them to work under his roof. In the next scene, Brandt is summoned to Dietrich's office and is informed that the agent had been the pastor all along. The security repeatedly knocks him out last night to force him to drop further hideous plans, like the location of a second spy. When Himmler is about to arrive in the afternoon, Hermina tells Sigurd to ensure that Wilhelm is not provoked during the dinner. Himmler arrives, and Mika goes along with the other maids and lines up in front of the mansion. Later, the other maids are preparing for the dining table, but Mika is busy filling her firing weapon with bullets as she also fills up her courage to execute her revenge. Afterwards, Brandt follows Mika to her room and forcibly interrogates him. He tells her that he is aware that she is an agent. He informs her that the pastor is currently being tortured and will soon reveal Mika's identity. Brandt dismayingly asks if Mika is using him to betray his own country for the woman, but Mika denies and encourages him to do his duties. Out of hopelessness for their complicated situation, their arms wrap around each other to gather strength. At the dinner, Himmler extends to Wilhelm an invitation from Adolf Hitler to return to his former throne in Berlin. Hermina is overjoyed at the thought of finally becoming Empress of Germany. However, when Himmler boasts about the euthanasia of disabled children in Germany, but Wilhelm expresses his uncertainty. In order to maintain his anger, he leaves and goes to the woods. Mika goes to Kaiser before she leaves, but the Kaiser confronts Mika that he knows she is the secret agent. But suddenly the Kaiser collapses. Meek shouts for help and Brandt hears her voice. Just then he receives a call from Gestapo. He gets to learn that the Gestapo has already learned her true identity. To help her escape, Brandt uses the intercommunication device in each room. He commands everyone to not get out of their rooms without his permission. He drives Kaiser to the nearest hospital, but his true plan is to get Mika inside the car and helps her escape. When they arrive at the end of the road along the woods, Meek accepts Brant's invitation to marry him only if he finds her after the war. Years later, Brant receives a small brown package, which he impatiently opens and finds Meek's address written on the first page. Teary-eyed, Brant smiles as the longing for his lovely woman fills up his heart. The movie ends with Meek patiently sitting on the bench, revealing that she is pregnant. May their child be independent, safe, and sound. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit that like button if you did, subscribe if you're new, and at last, I would say stay well, stay safe, thanks.